Tell you what, though, I will give you my recipe. Here we go. If you can do today's lesson, you can get 100% on your next test. Is there anybody here who does not want 100%? You don't like getting really good scores? Okay. And I'm not joking when I said 50% of all the students will get an A+ on this next test. I hold to that statement. Yep. All right, here we go. Amplitude. We talked about that. It is the absolute value of A. Who remembers how we determine the period? 2 pi divided by B. Very good. Those are the pieces of sine and cosine graphs that we talked about thus far. Now, let's talk about this guy right here in the end. Anybody want to guess what that does in the function? Moves it up or down. So we get to vertical shift, that's easy. It's just D. If you remember, this is where I was gone with COVID during this time. We're doing section 2.5, and we were talking about transformations and stuff. You guys did really well on that test. But we said if it's on the outside, it affects it vertically. If it's on the inside, it affects it horizontally. So the horizontal shift, you look on the inside, set bx minus c equal to 0 and solve. For anybody who's watching YouTube that doesn't go to this school, there's a different way of setting that up, but I think that that's the best way to do it. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start with this first example here, 3 cosine of x plus 2. And what we want to start with is, I prefer doing it in this order. If you ever have a different idea how you want to do something mathematically, please go ahead and do so. I would say only 1/3 of the time I show you stuff is how I actually did it growing up. But the way that I do it isn't always the best way to teach it. You see what I'm saying? So this is, I think, the best way to teach it for most students to approach it is to start with the vertical shift and the amplitude. Why? Because those are the vertical structures of the graph. Those are the easiest ones to come up with. So what's the vertical shift here? 2. So when you come up with the vertical shift, make a new axis. So what I'm going to do is, instead of having everything being centered on 0, I'm going to have everything centered on 2. So I go up 2 units, I kind of draw this axis guy right there. Everybody good? Then I determine the amplitude. What's the amplitude? 3. And once I do that, I mark the max and min. So I'm going to, if I'm shifted up 2 units, and then there's an amplitude of 3, which means from the center, I go up 3 and down 3 from there. What's the highest spot that I'm going to reach? 5. So I go all the way up to 5. What's the lowest spot I'm going to go? Down to -1. So the vertical structure of my graph is taken care of. Is everybody okay with that? So watch. You see it? From 2, I go up 3 and down 3. Biggest mistake people make is they see 3 and they just say 3 is the top and -3 is the bottom. Don't do that. I'll mark it wrong. All right, so then we get, let's see, period. Take 2 pi and divide it by b, and you get 2 pi. So mark off 2 pi. Why do I divide it into 4 parts? What are those things called? So there's the Q quadrants. There's 4 quadrants that cosine takes to travel through before it repeats itself. And then we have a horizontal shift, but in this situation, if you just solve x equal to 0, that inside piece, x equals 0, notice that you don't have any transformation horizontally, right? So no horizontal shift here. So we mark the new axis, we mark the max and the min, period, we take 2 pi divided by b, divide into 4. And then we pause. Okay? If there's no horizontal shift, we're done. If there's a horizontal shift, then we got a little bit more work to do. Is there a horizontal shift here? No. Where do I start? Start up at the maximum. And then you go through that same pattern where you cross over the middle, go to the bottom, come back up. Look at that. Sorry, Laura. Here we go. All right, so we've got vertical shift, we've got amplitude, we've got period, and we got horizontal shift. All right, what is the vertical shift here? There's not one because there's nothing on the outside of the function that's being added or subtracted. Good job. Amplitude, 1. So that's pretty easy. I just go up 1 and down 1. So the horizontal structure, or the vertical structure of my graph is already set up. It's pretty easy, huh? And so then the period, I take 2 pi and divide it by what? B, which is the number in front of x. So I get 2 pi. True or false? There's a horizontal shift. There it is. What is the horizontal shift? If you take the inside and say equal to 0 and solve for x, what would you get? It's pi over 4. When you have a horizontal shift, make a ghost graph. This is not a term that is coined mathematically. This is a made-up Kevin Gens term. But after I taught this many times, I found after about the 3rd or 4th time I taught, I was like, we got to try something else because people just weren't getting it. So I just make a sketch before the horizontal shift. So pretend like the horizontal shift isn't there. Where does the sine graph start? In the middle. And am I going to start by going up or down? Up. So I'm going to make a dotted graph. Okay, a dotted graph. So that's not my real graph. My real graph, I'm going to do here in just a second, as soon as I understand the horizontal shift. The horizontal shift is pi over 4 units. How far is pi over 4 on my graph? If you were to try to describe to somebody how far pi over 4 is, what would you say? Good. It's half of a tick mark, right? So my real graph, I'm just going to take these points here, and I'm going to move them all to the right, half of a tick mark. This is a tick mark. I hope that you can look at my blue graph and say it's the same as the red graph. It's just moved to the right approximately pi over 4 units. Yes, because pi over 4 is half of pi over 2. What do you think? Got a thumbs up from a few. couple people gave me a look saying, Gens, I just want to know your pizza recipe. All right, flip to your worksheet. You sure? Positive? So your very first worksheet, so I put them in the wrong order, didn't I? Remember how I put them in the wrong order? Go to your first worksheet, and we are going to look at the first two examples on your first worksheet. So I'm going to hold up Miss Avery's. Everybody say hi, Avery. Wasn't that? Look at how nice they are to you. Look at that. You want to turn to this page right here. Okay, here we go. We're going to do these two examples together, and then you are going to work on the rest. Vertical shift. It's the first worksheet, very first. They're out of order, so. All right, vertical shift is 1. So what should I do? Yep, go up 1 unit. Make that new axis. Amplitude. 2. What do I do with that? Go up 2 to a value of, and down 2 to a value of. Period. 2 pi divided by? Just 2 pi. True or false? There's a horizontal shift. True. And it is pi over 4. So before I make my graph with the horizontal shift, I'm going to make a ghost graph. Where does sine start? I start in the middle. I add up. You can see how this builds off of our previous two examples, so you can put it all together. What is the shift? How far do I move? Half of a tick mark. You can see I have 4 tick marks on each side. However, 4 is half of 1. So you can see you put all 4 pieces there. Look at example number 2. When we first started, if I showed you example 2, you would say, well, that looks like a very complicated function of graph. Agreed? But when we look at it right now, folks, if you can graph this one, you can get an A+ on the next test. It's as simple as that. Just say broad shoulders. So Mr. Gens, you have very broad shoulders. You obviously lifted a lot of weights. You're a muscular guy. You take up a lot of the board. Please move. Yes. Yep. What? Oh, those are cross-country uniforms. We're going to try some on to get proper fitting. We're ordering new track and field uniforms. Okay, vertical shift, last one. -2, down 2 due to that guy right there. Let's go down 1, 2. On my axis of rotation. Amplitude, 2. So what's going to be the maximum spot that this graph will reach? We'll go all the way up to 0, and we'll go all the way down to -4. When I look at your graphs, I want to see those maximums and minimums marked. And I want to make sure that your dots go to about those spots. Period. 2 pi over 3. Oh boy. What's half of 2 pi over 3? 1 pi over 3, right? Like, what's half of 2 Lukes? 1 Luke, right? What's half of 2 pi over 3? 1 pi over 3. Last night, Kira cut the pizza into thirds. Tenley didn't like that. She wanted it cut half as much again. No, I was so disappointed. I said, why don't you ask for 60 degrees of pizza right now? They didn't know what I was talking about. I said, failures. Okay. So Kira cut them into thirds. That was too big. Tenley wanted them cut half again. So that would give her how many pieces? 5 or 6. Pizza pie. And then Micah said he wanted 3 of the slices. So how much did he get? He got half of it. Just making it up. My kids aren't that smart. They don't know fractions. All right. Don't worry, I paused YouTube. So let's make the graph. Cosine starts max, min, or middle? Minimum. There is, but we're making our ghost graph first. Like right along here, because that's the vertical shift. It normally would be right on the center, but the vertical shift moves it all down. Yeah. This guy? Don't do anything with this, no. With this one I do. That's where I put my dots for the middle. Okay. How do I determine the horizontal shift? This is the last thing we need to do and we're done. I take 3x plus pi and set it equal to 0. So you get 3x is equal to negative pi. So x is negative pi over 3. Oh, if it's negative, what do you think I do? Move to the left, right? So we got to move to the left. And how much is pi over 3? It's 2 tick marks. Oh, hey, look. Pi over 6, pi over 3. That's 1, 2 tick marks. Okay, so that means I have to move this one right here. I can move it 2 units to the left. Now watch, because this will help you out. And then this one I move 2 units to the left. 1 and 2. After you kind of establish it, you can start to see the pattern. You don't even need to really, move the points anymore. You can start just going, okay, top, middle, bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom, middle, top. And then you draw it. And then you're like, wait a minute, I've seen that before. That's a double helix, isn't it? And then all of a sudden you just realize that when you're in biology class and your teacher was telling you that the double helix was like the source of life, now you realize she was wrong. The sine curves are the source of life, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. There you go. Yeah. Oh, is that in the video? I hope so. Yep. Yeah, you tell your biology teacher what's up.